Here on this beautiful rainy day with the 97 Jeep Grand Cherokee because the water pump decided to fail and spit coolant throughout the engine bay, which caused the Jeep to overheat. And this is the reason I sometimes buy parts I find at a good price, like alternators, starters, U-joints, and fuel pumps for those emergency situations like we have here. I'm headed to the house to grab the antifreeze and water pump. I'm going to pick up a bypass hose because we'll be replacing that as well, then come back and attack the issue because we have no problems, only solutions. So the first thing I'm going to do is disconnect the negative battery terminal. And now the fan shroud is held in place with two fasteners, and you'll need a 13mm socket for removal. So this Jeep has the fan clutch that has to be removed with the fan shroud, so I'll be using the GearWrench fan clutch service kit, and I'll leave a link to my review video of this tool in the description below. Now we have plenty room to work, and the next step is removing the serpentine belt by turning the belt tensioner clockwise with the 15mm socket. I'm removing the upper hose at the radiator so I can move it out of the way when needed. And I'm removing the lower hose at the water pump, which will cause a mess, so make sure you have your drain pan ready. Now we need to unbolt the AC compressor. There's two fasteners up front and three fasteners in the back that attach to a triangle-shaped bracket. Then remove the nut that holds the AC line clip down using a 13mm socket for removal. We're not going to remove the AC compressor or open up any lines. We're just resting it on the intake manifold so it's out of the way. And now for the power steering pump. I'm using a 13mm deep socket with the 3-inch extension to remove the three fasteners that mount the power steering pump to the bracket. This is what the three holes in the power steering pump pulley are there for. There's no need to disconnect any lines, just move it out of the way. And now we need to remove this idler pulley using a 14mm socket. We also need to remove this small hold down bracket going from the alternator to the manifold using a 14mm socket. Now we have access to all 6 accessory bracket fasteners. This is the hardest one to remove, but with the power steering pump out of the way, I'll be using a 14mm ratcheting wrench for removal. Just make sure to break it loose with the wrench, then remove it by hand because now my tool is stuck. So I'll be removing the other 5 fasteners with a 14mm socket. You'll need a 13mm socket to remove the bolt from the dipstick tube. The heater core return tube is mounted to the valve cover with a nut. You'll need an 11mm deep socket for removal. So this tube isn't threaded into the water pump, it just pulls straight out. And now we can remove the last accessory bracket bolt. You can swing the bracket off to the side and rest it on the radiator support. You can leave the alternator bolted to the bracket without removing any connections. And everything I did was necessary to replace this bypass hose because there's no other way to get to it. Now when looking at the new water pump, we can see it's held in place with 7 fasteners, and it's important you put them back in the same place you took them out because a few are longer than the others. All fasteners are 14mm, but you'll need to use an open end wrench on this one because a regular socket won't fit, and the box wrench is too big. A low profile socket works, but the pulley will keep it from being removed. So I decided to make my life easier and just cut the bypass hose off. Then use a razor to clean the old gasket off the mating surface. I'm using a pick to remove the O-ring from the tube because the new water pump comes with a new one. You want to clean the tip off real good before putting the new O-ring in place. And I'm pretty sure that this is the original water pump that the Jeep came with from the factory, which isn't bad considering it lasted 272,134 miles. This is an AC Delco replacement pump, part number 252-1025. And I got this bypass hose from Advanced Auto Parts, Dayco part number A71651. And I've never used RTV on water pumps. I just put a little grease on the paper gasket that it comes with to keep it from shifting while I put it back into position. Now all we have to do is add coolant and purge the air from the cooling system. So jack the Jeep up so the front end is up in the air. Here's my funnel. It's not spill free, but it's okay because I'm going to wrap some self-fusing silicone tape around the bottom until the diameter fits the opening in the radiator. Then cut the heat on full blast and add coolant, then immediately check for any leaks. When the thermostat opens up, you'll have to add more coolant. I'll always rev the engine and squeeze the upper radiator hose to help force air out, but I consider the job done when the vent blows hot air inside the cabin.